all doing good. The third block, Beyond the Horizon, introduces an extract from Alfred Tennyson's poem Ulysses. The lines are:
All experience is an arch wherethrough gleams that untravelled world whose margin fades forever and forever when I move.
In these lines, Ulysses justifies his desire to keep traveling. He compares his life and experience to that of an arch. As he moves, the margin of the arch fades, or you can tell the margin of the untraveled world seems to recede. This means that there is no end or margin for exploring. As you explore and experience, you learn that there is yet much to explore and experience. Today, let's deal with the first chapter of this blog, Sunrise on the Hills by H.W. Longfellow. Like Wordsworth, H.W. Longfellow also seems to worship nature. Let me read the poem aloud, and as usual, what should you people do? Yes, you have to pause the video, read twice or thrice and comprehend the poem by yourself, and then resume playing the video. So, let me read and listen carefully to the poem.
Sunrise on the Hills by H.W. Longfellow. I stood upon the hills when heaven's wide arch was glorious with the sun's returning march, and woods were brightened, and soft gales went forth to kiss the sun-clad vales. The clouds were far beneath me, bathed in light. They gathered midway round the wooded height, and in their fading glory shone like hosts in battle overthrown. As many a pinnacle, with shifting glance, through the grey mist thrust up its shattered lance, and rocking on the cliff was left the dark pine blasted, bare and cleft. The wheel of the cloud was lifted, and below glowed the rich valley, and the river's flow was darkened by the forest shade, or glistened in the white cascade, where upward, in the mellow blush of the day, the noisy bittern wheeled his spiral way. I heard the distant water dash, I saw the current whirl and flash, and richly by the blue lake's silver beach, the woods were bending with a silent reach. Then over the vale, with gentle swell, the music of the village bell came sweetly to the echo-giving hills, and the wild horn, whose voice the woodland fills, was ringing to the merry shout that faint and far the glen sent out, were answering to the sudden short, thin smoke through thick-leaved branches from the dingle brook. If thou art worn and heart beset with sorrows that thou wouldst forget, if thou wouldst read a lesson that will keep thy heart from fainting and thy soul from sleep, go to the woods and hills. No tears dim the sweet look that nature wears.
Hope you understood and comprehended the poem after listening. Yes, the poet has described the nature so beautifully that it shows that the poet had a keen eye for detail. He has also been successful in expressing what he has seen. As the poem begins, we find the poet standing and watching the panoramic view of the nature. Where is the poet standing? Yes, of course, he is standing high on a hill. And towards the end, in the last stanza, we find the poet trying to give us a message. What is the message? Yes, nature gives relief to all our pain and problems. All the worries will be relieved in the lap of nature. Nature is soothing. Come on, let's move on stanza by stanza, or to be more precise, line by line.
I stood upon the hills when heaven's wide arch was glorious with the sun's returning march, and woods were brightened, and soft gales went forth to kiss the sun-clad vales. Standing on the hills, the poet describes the nature as he sees it. Heaven's wide arch means the sky. The entire arch of the sky was lit up with the sun's glow as it was getting ready to rise on the hills. The poem opens with a description of the grand, glorious, returning march or rise of the sun, which the poet witnesses from the top of a hill. The sun's rays are falling everywhere. Even the woods are brightened or shining as the rays fall on them. Woods stands for the forest. The gales again means the strong wind. Okay, here you find the strong wind. The gales seems to blow very softly in the sun-covered vales. Vales means valley. You get a beautiful image of the wind kissing the sun-covered valley. The wind is personified here. The clouds were far beneath me, bathed in light. They gathered midway, round the wooded height, and in their fading glory shone, like hosts in battle overthrown. The cloud seems to be beneath or below because the poet is standing on the hill. The phrase bathed in light means the clouds were brightened by the sun's rays. The poet feels that the clouds are gathered or surrounded just above the woods. The beauty of the rising sun with its rays makes the glory of the cloud fade. That is, the sun's glory outshines everything else, and the clouds that have gathered midway around the woods now look like an army defeated in war. The clouds flee or run away just as the defeated soldiers flee from the battlefield. As many a pinnacle with shifting glance, through the grey mist thrust up its shattered glance, and rocking on the cliff was left, the dark pine blasted, bare and cleft. Here, pinnacle means the top of a very high mountain. Lance actually means a pointed weapon, but here in the poem it means the sharp point of the pinnacles. The poet saw how every mountain around him seemed to raise up a lance with its pointed tip. The entire mountains and its pinnacles were covered by the grey mist. Only the lances, that is the topmost point, the pointed end, were seen shattering the sky above it. It means only the tip of the mountains were seen or was visible. The line and rocking on the cliff was left means every cliff was bare except for one dark pine tree. Rocking again means shaking or swaying. Only one pine tree was left on the mountain which was swaying. In the line, the dark pine blasted, bare and cleft. Blasted means whose branches had no leaves or leafless. Bare means uncovered or empty. Cleft means split. The pine tree appeared to have been destroyed, split into half and bereft or deprived of leaves. Means without any leaves. The veil of the cloud was lifted, and below glowed the rich valley, and the river's flow was darkened by the forest shade, or glistened in the white cascade. Here in this stanza, veil means something that is hung to hide an object from view. Now, the veil of the cloud is lifted. That is, finally, the clouds disappear. Nature begins to smile and the rich valley begins to glow with all her charm. The poet sees a beautiful valley which is glowing brightly below the hill. The valley is said to be rich because it is full of trees and greeneries. The line, the river flow was darkened by the forest shade or glistened in the white cascade means part of the river was dark in color or was darkened because of the shade of the forest. It means the sun's rays had not reached the flowing river through the thick forest. But the sun's rays had fallen on the cascade. Cascade means the waterfall which was high above, and that's why the cascade was shining but the river below was dark. Where upward in the mellow blush of day the noisy bittern wheeled his spiral way. Now the last two lines of the first stanza. Here bittern means a bird that belongs to the heron family. Finally, it is morning in the mellow blush of the day. Mellow means soft. The morning is announced by the noisy bittern moving in a spiral manner or in a conical way.
We have completed the first stanza. Now hold a brush, a paintbrush in your mind and start painting this beautiful nature as seen by our poet. Yes, let the first stroke be of the bright color to the valley, to the clouds that are gathered high above the woods, and to the cascade, and different shades of the sunrise crimson, red, orange, yellow, etc., and a dark shade for the woods, and so on. So vivid and clear is the description of our poet. Now let's move to the second stanza.
I heard the distant water dash. I saw the current whirl and flash. And richly by the blue lake's silver beach, the woods were bending with a silent reach. From the beautiful sights of the valley, the poem gradually moves on to the mesmerizing sounds that the valley sends out. The word current means the flow of water. Whirl and flash is a strong and swift movement of the water. The poet focuses on the river flowing beneath him. The current was so strong and swift that he could hear the water hitting the rocks, hence the term dashing of the water. The lake appears blue in color and the beach is silver because of the sun's rays. And all this is the consequences of optical illusion. The trees on the beach tends to bend itself as if to reach or kiss the blue lake silently, a stealthy or sneaking image of a lover. Then, over the vale, with gentle swell, the music of the village bell came sweetly to the echo-giving hills. Across the valley, one can hear the music of the village bell, which is echoing in the hills. Every single sound was echoed by the hills, and the village bell sounded very sweet. And the wild horn, whose voice the woodland fills, was ringing to the merry shout that faint and far the glen sent out, were answering to the sudden short, thin smoke through thick-leaved branches from the dingle brook. Here, wild horns refers to the bird owl. The sound of the wild horns can be heard everywhere on the hills as if it is answering to the voice heard in the valley, probably of the villagers making merry, that is coming from far, hence the sound is faint. A thin line of smoke could also be seen rising through the branches of the tree, covering the hills. Smoke from the valley always has a close connection with the inhabitants or the dwellers in the valley. Here, since smoke comes after a shot, we guess or we get a notion of a gun used by the inhabitants, probably for hunting or merrymaking. Hence, the voice of the wild horn and the merry shouts from the valley fill the air.
Hope you could comprehend the two stanzas. The poem will still ruminate, or else you can say that the poem might have appealed both your visual and auditory senses. Yes, in the first stanza, the canvas of the nature absorbs the brightest of colors, and in the second stanza, nature resounds the sweetest music. And let's wait and see what the poet wants to tell us through his third stanza. Till then, bye. Take care. Thank you.